The galaxy was a vast and mysterious place, filled with countless stars, planets, and civilizations. Among all the species in the galaxy, one had risen to power above all others, the Zarkarians. Known for their mighty fleet and ruthless tactics, they had conquered many worlds, leaving destruction in their wake. Their empire stretched across countless star systems, and they believed no one could ever challenge their strength. But they were wrong. Earth, a small, blue planet on the edge of the Milky Way, had just made its first step onto the galactic stage. At first, the Zarkarians did not take humanity seriously. They saw Earth as a primitive world, full of weak, insignificant beings. Their technology was far behind the Zarkarians, and they didn't believe humans would pose any threat. But they were about to learn how wrong they were. On the bridge of the human fleet's flagship, the Starfire commander Ryan Hayes stood, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared out into the endless void of space. His mind was focused, his heart steady, but there was a storm brewing inside. The Zarkarians were coming, and Earth was ready to meet them head-on. "We've got them on the radar," said Lieutenant Jess Walker, the ship's communications officer. Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of tension in her tone. She was young, but had the kind of determination that made her a perfect fit for the job. "Distance?" Ryan asked, his voice steady as he turned to face her. "They'll be in firing range in 10 minutes, Commander," Jess replied. Ryan nodded, his face grim. The Zarkarians had sent a massive fleet, far larger than Earth's, but they had underestimated humanity's resolve. Earth's fleet was smaller, but they had something the Zarkarians couldn't predict: the human spirit. "Prepare the fleet," Ryan said. "No retreat. No surrender." As the battle drew nearer, the tension on the bridge was palpable. The crew of the Starfire had trained for this moment, but no amount of training could fully prepare them for what was about to happen. The Zarkarian fleet was massive, with ships that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. The humans, however, had one thing that made them different from any other species: their sheer will to survive. Ryan glanced at his second-in-command, Captain Ethan Roberts. Ethan was a seasoned veteran, and he had fought in countless battles. But even he knew that this was unlike anything they had faced before. "It will need every ship in the fleet," Captain Ryan said. Ethan nodded, his face set in a determined expression. "Aye, Commander. All ships are ready." On the screen before them, the Zarkarian fleet appeared, a sea of warships stretching across the sky like an unending storm. The ships were massive, their weapons gleaming in the cold light of space. The Zarkarians were clearly confident, their ships moving forward with the arrogance of those who believed victory was already assured. But the humans were not afraid. Ryan knew that they had one advantage the Zarkarians could never match: their ability to fight with everything they had. The Zarkarians may have had superior numbers, but the humans had heart. They would fight until the very last ship fell, and they would never back down. "Fire," Ryan commanded. The battle erupted with a deafening roar as the human fleet unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy, blasts toward the oncoming Zarkarian ships. The Zarkarians returned fire with equal force, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. Explosions rocked the battlefield as ships from both sides were torn apart. The air was filled with the sounds of battle. The stars themselves seemed to tremble at the fury of the conflict, but the humans did not falter. Every ship in the fleet fought with the ferocity of a species determined to protect their home. Ryan watched as the Starfire fired its main cannon, sending a blast of energy that struck a Zarkarian cruiser, ripping it apart in a blaze of light. The humans were small, but their determination was immense. For hours, the battle raged on, with both sides taking heavy losses. The Zarkarians were stronger, but the humans were smarter. They used every tactic they had learned. From hit-and-run attacks to outmaneuvering the enemy with quick, precise strikes, they had no choice but to fight smart. The Zarkarians had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. As the battle wore on, it became clear that the Zarkarians were starting to retreat. They had not expected the human fleet to be so resilient, so capable. They thought they were facing a species of weak, defenseless beings. But they were wrong. Ryan watched as the Zarkarian fleet slowly began to pull back. The damage they had sustained was too much. One by one, their ships turned and fled, leaving behind a field of wreckage in their wake. The human fleet, though battered and scarred, remained strong. "We did it," Ethan said, a note of disbelief in his voice. Ryan nodded, but he knew this was only the beginning. The Zarkarians would not give up easily. They would return, and next time, they would be even more determined to destroy humanity. But for now, Earth had won. The victory was hard-earned, but it was a victory nonetheless. Humanity had proven that they would not go down without a fight. They had faced the might of the Zarkarians and emerged victorious. And in doing so, they had sent a message to the galaxy: never underestimate humanity. The victory was still fresh in the minds of the crew aboard the Starfire, but Commander Ryan Hayes knew that the battle they had just won was only a small part of what was to come. The Zarkarians had underestimated humanity, and now they knew the humans were not as weak as they had believed. But that didn't mean the fight was over. In fact, it had only just begun. Ryan stood on the bridge of the Starfire, looking out into the dark expanse of space. His mind raced with thoughts of what would come next. The Zarkarians would surely regroup and come back stronger. They had made a mistake underestimating humanity, but they wouldn't make it again. Earth's victory had shaken the Zarkarians to their core, but the war was far from over. Commander Lieutenant Jess Walker's voice broke his thoughts. She was looking at the data on her screen, her expression serious. "We've received a transmission from the Drakari." Ryan turned to face her, his brow furrowed. The Drakari were an ancient and mysterious race, and humanity had only recently made contact with them. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had, and they had agreed to assist Earth in this battle. But Ryan didn't know what to expect from them. "What do they want?" Ryan asked. "They want to meet with you, Commander," Jess replied. "They've requested an urgent meeting." Ryan nodded. He had known that Earth's allies would play a big role in the coming war. But this was the first time the Drakari had made such a direct request. He couldn't ignore it. "Set up the meeting," Ryan ordered. A few moments later, a screen on the bridge flickered to life, and the image of a tall, imposing Drakari warrior appeared. His skin was a deep shade of purple, and his eyes glowed with an intensity that seemed to pierce right through. Ryan, the Drakari, had a reputation for being fierce and wise, and this one was no exception. "Commander Hayes," the Drakari said in a deep, gravelly voice, "I am Talaran, leader of the Drakari forces. We have been watching your progress with great interest. You have shown strength, but the Zarkarians are not a foe that can be defeated with strength alone. We must work together if we are to win this war." "What do you suggest?" he asked. Talaran Ice's eyes glowed brighter as he spoke. "We have developed a new weapon, one that could tip the balance of power in your favor. It is a weapon unlike anything the Zarkarians have seen. We will share it with you, but it comes with a price." Ryan listened carefully. The Drakari were known for their advanced technology, but they weren't known for giving away favors easily. If they wanted something in return, Ryan needed to know what it was before he agreed to anything. "What price?" Ryan asked. Talaran paused, his expression unreadable. "In exchange for the weapon, we ask that you share the secret of your super soldiers with us. We want to study them, learn from them, and use their power to fight the Zarkarians alongside you." Ryan was taken aback. The super soldiers were humanity's secret weapon. The thought of sharing them with another species was a difficult decision. But he knew that the Drakari could be an invaluable ally. And if their technology could help humanity defeat the Zarkarians, it was a risk worth considering. "I'll need to discuss this with my team," Ryan said, "but we'll consider your offer." Talaran nodded. "Take your time, Commander. But remember, the Zarkarians will not wait forever. They are already regrouping, and we must be ready for their next move." The transmission ended, and Ryan turned to his officers. "We need to discuss this," he said. "The Drakari offer us a powerful weapon, but they want access to our super soldiers. I'm not sure if we can trust them with that." Captain Ethan Roberts, Ryan's second-in-command, spoke up. "The Drakari are our best chance at winning this war, Commander. Their technology is far beyond anything we have. If we can work with them, it might be the edge we need. But they want access to our super soldiers," Ryan said. "That's not something we can give away lightly. These soldiers are humanity's most valuable asset," Lieutenant Jess Walker interjected. "We don't have much choice, Commander. The Zarkarians are going to come at us harder next time, and we'll need every advantage we can get. If the Drakari can help us, we should take the offer." Ryan nodded, knowing that Jess was right. The Zarkarians were not going to give up Isolé, and humanity needed all the help they could get. But the decision weighed heavily on him. The super soldiers were humanity's pride and joy, and sharing them with another species felt like a betrayal of everything they had fought for. "I'll make the call," Ryan said finally. "We'll accept the Drakari's offer, but we need to set some ground rules. We share the weapon, but we don't share everything. Our super soldiers will remain under human control." Ethan and Jess both nodded in agreement, and Ryan made the decision to move forward. The next step in the war had been set, but the road ahead was uncertain, and Ryan knew that this alliance could either be humanity's greatest strength or its biggest mistake. As Ryan prepared to make contact with the Drakari once more, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking a dangerous path. But in war, sometimes the only choice was to take risks, and in this fight, humanity had no choice but to push forward. The decision was made. Commander Ryan Hayes had agreed to the Drakari's terms. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was the only choice. Earth needed every advantage it could get if it was going to survive the coming storm. The Zarkarians were not going to stop, and the next battle would be even fiercer than the last. Ryan stood at the front of the Starfire's bridge, looking out at the vast emptiness of space. The stars seemed distant, almost unreachable, but there was no time for doubt. The fate of humanity rested on the decisions they made now. "Commander?" Lieutenant Jess Walker's voice broke the silence. "The Drakari have sent the coordinates. We're ready to meet them." Ryan turned and nodded. "Prepare the fleet. We leave immediately." The Drakari were waiting for them at the edge of a dead star system. It was a quiet, desolate place, far from the bustle of galactic trade routes. The kind of place where no one would think to look. The perfect location for a secret meeting. As the Starfire and its small fleet of human ships approached, Ryan couldn't help but feel a mix of unease and curiosity. The Drakari had always been mysterious, their motives unclear. But now, more than ever, they were humanity's best hope. A large Drakari ship, unlike anything the humans had ever seen, appeared in front of them. It was sleek, almost organic in design, with strange markings covering its surface. It looked as if it had been grown, not built. The ship's energy readings were off the charts, far beyond the capabilities of any human technology. Ryan took a deep breath and gave the command. "Dock with the Drakkar ship. I'll meet with Tlaren personally." Starfire docked smoothly with the Drakari vessel, and Ryan, along with his trusted officers, made their way to the airlock. The door slid open, revealing Tlaren standing in the center of the room. His glowing eyes regarded them silently as they stepped inside. The Drakari were intimidating, but Ryan had learned not to judge them by their appearance alone. They were warriors, yes, but they had also proven to be wise and honorable. "You've come," Tlaren said, his voice deep and resonant. "I trust you've made your decision." Ryan nodded. "We'll accept your offer. We'll work together, but we will keep control of our super soldiers. They are humanity's greatest asset, and we won't give them up without a fight." Tlaren S.'s expression remained unchanged. "I understand your caution, Commander, but you must know that if you wish to defeat the Zarkarians, we will need to share everything. Their strength lies in their numbers, but your super soldiers could give us the edge we need." He had seen the Zarkarians' power firsthand, and he knew that defeating them would require more than just human will. They needed something more. But the idea of sharing their most powerful weapon still made him uneasy. "How can we trust you?" Ryan asked bluntly. His eyes glowed brighter as he stepped forward. "You do not have to trust me, Commander. Trust in the cause. The Zarkarians will destroy us all if we do not stand together. I have already lost many of my people to their attacks. I have nothing left to gain but the defeat of our enemies." Ryan looked at the Drakari leader, weighing his words carefully. He could sense the sincerity in Tlaren's voice. The Drakari were a proud race, and they had no reason to lie about their intentions. Right? Ryan said finally. We'll share the technology. But I want to set some conditions. Our super soldiers remain under human command. We'll cooperate, but humanity will always have control over its own forces. Talaran nodded in agreement. I accept your terms, Commander. Now, let us move forward. The Drakari led them to a secure chamber deep inside their ship, where a massive glowing device was kept. It looked like a massive cannon, but it was unlike any weapon the humans had ever seen. This, Talaran said, is the weapon that could turn the tide of this war. It harnesses the energy of a dying star and converts it into a weapon capable of destroying entire fleets with a single shot. It is a weapon of last resort, and it must be used wisely. Ryan stared at the weapon, feeling both awe and fear. If used correctly, this weapon could destroy the Zarkarian fleet in one blow. But if misused, it could also wipe out entire planets. How do we use it? Ryan asked. Talaran's eyes glowed brighter. We will teach you how to wield it, Commander. But it will require great precision. One wrong move, and it could turn on you. Ryan turned to Ethan Roberts, his second-in-command who had been silent throughout the meeting. What do you think? Ethan gave a grim nod. It's powerful, no doubt, but it's dangerous. We'll need to be careful. Ryan turned back to Talaran. We'll learn how to use it, but we're not just going to use it recklessly. If we're going to defeat the Zarkarians, we need to do it with strategy. Talaran agreed. I understand. Strategy is key. But remember, time is not on our side. The Zarkarians will come for us again, and they will come with everything they have. Ryan's mind raced. The weapon could change everything, but it also came with a heavy responsibility. He had to trust that humanity would not lose itself in the pursuit of power. They couldn't become like the Zarkarians, ruthless and driven by conquest. All right, Ryan said, his voice firm. We'll work together. We'll learn how to use this weapon, and we'll take down the Zarkarians. But we do it on our terms. Talaran nodded, and the deal was sealed. Humanity and the Drakari would fight side by side, but the road ahead was far from clear. The Zarkarians were a powerful enemy, and Ryan knew that no matter how strong they became, victory would never be guaranteed. As the meeting ended and Ryan made his way back to the Starfire, he couldn't help but wonder what the future held. The stakes were higher than ever. The choices they made now would determine the fate of countless lives. The war was far from over, but humanity had taken its first steps toward victory, and Ryan Hayes was ready for whatever came next. The next few days were a blur of activity as Commander Ryan Hayes and his crew worked with the Drakari to learn how to operate their powerful weapon. The Drakari were patient teachers, but Ryan could tell that they were just as anxious as humanity to see the weapon in action. It was clear that this weapon was humanity's best hope to defeat the Zarkarians. But Ryan knew that it was not enough to rely on just one weapon. The war required more than that. As the Starfire and the Drakari fleet trained together, Ryan couldn't help but feel the weight of the decision they had made. The Zarkarians were still out there, planning their next move, and Ryan had a sinking feeling that they would come back stronger. The humans and Drakari had gained a powerful weapon, but they still had to face the full might of the Zarkarian Empire. Ryan stood in the command center, watching the data streaming across the screens. The ship's sensors detected movement in the Zarkarian fleet. The Zarkarians had regrouped. They were coming. Commander, Lieutenant Jess Walker's voice broke through his thoughts. We've got a massive fleet heading straight for us. It's the Zarkarians. They've come in full force. Ryan's heart raced as he glanced at the screen. The Zarkarian fleet was even larger than before. They had gathered every ship they could find and were now heading straight for Earth. We need to prepare, Ryan said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. All ships report to battle stations. We can't let them reach Earth. The crew moved quickly, each person taking their assigned position. Ryan's mind raced. He had always known that the Zarkarians would come back, but he hadn't expected them to be so relentless. The war wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about survival. Captain Roberts, Ryan said, turning to his second-in-command. "Get the Drakari fleet ready. We need all the help we can get." Ethan nodded, his face grim. "Aye, Commander. I'll make sure they're ready." Ryan turned back to the view of the Zarkarian fleet. They were getting closer. The time for training was over. The war was here. "We've got one shot at this," Ryan said, his voice low but resolute. "We have the weapon, but we have to use it carefully. One wrong move, and we could lose everything. The Zarkarians will come at us with everything they have, and we can't afford to make a mistake." Jess nodded, her face set in determination. "We'll be ready, Commander." As the Zarkarian ships drew nearer, Ryan took a deep breath and made his way to the weapons room. The Drakari had explained how to use the weapon, but it was still a mystery to Ryan. The weapon harnessed the power of a dying star, converting that energy into a devastating blast. The energy levels were so high that the weapon could potentially wipe out entire fleets in a single shot. But it was also dangerous. One misfire, and it could destroy everything in its path, including the Starfire and the entire human fleet. Commander Talaran's voice crackled over the communication system. "The weapon is ready. We've synchronized our systems. It's up to you now." Ryan took a deep breath. The moment of truth had arrived. He looked over at the control panel and saw the enormous energy readings flashing on the screen. The weapon was ready to fire. He just had to hope that everything went according to plan. "Hold steady," Ryan said to his crew. "We'll make the first strike. Let's show the Zarkarians what humanity is capable of." With one final command, Ryan pressed the button. The energy from the weapon surged, and a blinding light filled the room. The Starfire shook as the weapon fired, sending a beam of energy so powerful that it seemed to tear the fabric of space itself. The blast ripped through the Zarkarian fleet, destroying ships in its path. And the shockwave of energy sent the remaining Zarkarian ships scattering. Ryan watched the devastation on the screen, his heart pounding. The weapon had worked. It had been a perfect shot. The Zarkarians were in disarray, and their fleet was in ruins. But there were still many ships left. The Zarkarians weren't going to give up that easily, Commander Jess said, her voice filled with urgency. "They're regrouping. They're not done yet." Ryan nodded, his mind racing. The Zarkarians had been shaken, but they weren't defeated. They were going to retaliate. "Prepare the fleet for another round," Ryan ordered. "We're not finished yet." The humans and the Drakari worked together, coordinating their fleets as they prepared for the next wave. Ryan knew that they couldn't afford to let the Zarkarians regain their strength. They had to keep pushing, keep attacking. This was humanity's chance to finally put an end to the war. As the Zarkarians regrouped and came back at them, Ryan felt a surge of determination. The first strike had been a success, but it was only the beginning. Humanity had proven that they could stand up to the Zarkarians, but they needed to stay focused. "The battle wasn't over yet. We won't stop," Ryan said, his voice filled with confidence. "We fight for Earth, for our families, for our future. We will never back down." The battle raged on, and the Starfire moved forward with renewed purpose. The Zarkarians were strong, but humanity was stronger. Ryan Hayes knew that this war was far from over, but he also knew that humanity was no longer the underdog. They had shown the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with, and they would not stop until the Zarkarians were defeated once and for all. As the fleets collided in the cold depths of space, Ryan couldn't help but think back to the moment when the Zarkarians had first arrived. They had thought that humanity was weak, that Earth was just a small, insignificant planet. Now, the Zarkarians knew better. Humanity had fought back with everything they had, and they had gained the respect of even the most powerful enemies in the galaxy. Ryan glanced around at his crew. The people who had stood by him through it all, they were more than just soldiers. They were his family, and they were all in this fight together. "Stay strong," Ryan said. "We fight as one." The battle raged on, but Ryan knew that humanity had taken its place in the galaxy. The Zarkarians would fall, and Earth would rise. It was only a matter of time. The final battle had arrived. After days of intense fighting, the Zarkarians had finally launched their last attack. Their fleet was vast, but the human forces had grown stronger with every passing moment. Commander Ryan Hayes stood on the bridge, of the Starfire, looking at the battle unfolding before him. The stakes had never been higher. Earth's survival depended on this final clash. Commander Lieutenant Jess Walker said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. The Zarkarians are closing in. We're running out of time. Ryan looked at the enemy fleet on the screens. The Zarkarians had gathered every ship they could find, and their forces seemed endless. But the human fleet had grown in strength as well. The Drakari had been invaluable allies, and their advanced technology had made a difference. Knew that no matter how many ships they had, no matter how advanced their weapons were, it would all come down to one thing: human determination. We fight for Earth, Ryan said, his voice firm. We fight for our future. We won't let the Zarkarians take what is ours. The crew of the Starfire was ready. Soldiers aboard the human ships were ready. It all trained for this moment. They knew that this was the final chance to end the war once and for all. Prepare to engage, Ryan commanded. We will make our stand here. We won't let them get any closer. The human fleet moved forward, locking into formation. Ships followed closely behind, their weapons charged and ready. The Zarkarians opened fire first, their massive warships launching volleys of missiles and energy blasts toward the human fleet. But humanity had learned from their past battles. They were ready. Return fire, Ryan ordered. The Starfire fired its weapons, and the other human ships followed suit. The battle erupted in a dazzling display of energy and destruction. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as the two fleets clashed in the void of space. Ships from both sides were destroyed in moments, but the humans fought with everything they had. Ryan's heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold on the screens. The Zarkarians were strong, but the humans had something that the Zarkarians didn't: unity. Every human ship, every soldier, was fighting for the same goal. That made them stronger than any enemy. We've got them on the ropes, Captain Ethan Roberts said, his voice filled with determination. But we can't let up. We'll keep coming. Ryan nodded. Keep pushing. You don't stop until they're finished. For hours, the battle continued. The Zarkarians fought fiercely, but the human fleet had learned from their previous encounters. They knew how to outmaneuver the Zarkarians, how to strike quickly and efficiently. The Zarkarians had underestimated humanity before, and now they were paying the price. Commander Jess said, her voice tense. The Zarkarian flagship is ahead. If we can take it down, the rest of the fleet will fall apart. Ryan's mind raced. Taking out the Zarkarian flagship was a risky move, but it could turn the tide of the battle. If they could destroy their leader's ship, the Zarkarians might lose their will to fight, but it would also be dangerous. The flagship was heavily armed and heavily defended. Prepare to attack the flagship, Ryan said, his voice steady. All ships, focus fire on the enemy flagship. The human fleet, now working as a single unit, turned its focus on the Zarkarian flagship. The Zarkarians fought back with all their might, but the human fleet pressed on, determined to finish what they had started. Ryan's eyes stayed locked on the flagship as they closed the distance. He knew this was the moment that would decide the outcome of the war. Take the shot, Ryan commanded. The Starfire fired its main cannon, and the blast hit the Zarkarian flagship with incredible force. The explosion lit up space like a second sun, and for a moment, everything seemed still. The human fleet watched as the flagship disintegrated into debris, the once mighty vessel reduced to nothing. We did it, Ethan said, his voice filled with awe. But Ryan's victory was short-lived.
Us.
As the Zarkarian flagship exploded, the remaining Zarkarian ships seemed to lose all organization. They began to scatter, some trying to retreat, others charging blindly into battle. The humans had broken their command structure, and the Zarkarians no longer had the will to fight. Ryan watched the Zarkarian fleet break apart on the screens. Their final attack had failed. The war was over. We've won, Jess said quietly. Ryan stood there for a moment, taking in the sight. The Zarkarians had been defeated. Earth had survived. But the victory came at a cost. Many lives had been lost, and the scars of war would remain for years to come. The human fleet had fought with everything they had, and now they would have to rebuild. Send the signal, Ryan said. Let the galaxy know. Humanity is not to be underestimated. The message was broadcast across the stars, and Ryan knew that the galaxy would remember what had happened here. Humanity had proven that they could stand against the greatest empire in the galaxy, and they had emerged victorious. As the Starfire and the human fleet made their way back to Earth, Ryan looked out at the stars. The war had been long and hard, but humanity had endured. They had proven their strength, their unity, and their will to survive. But Ryan also knew that this victory was only the beginning. There were many challenges ahead, and the galaxy was still full of unknown dangers. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, but they would need to remain strong, stay united, never forget the lessons they had learned in the fires of war. "We've come a long way," Ryan said softly, "but the journey is just beginning." And with that, the human fleet turned back toward Earth, ready to rebuild and to face whatever new challenges the galaxy had in store for them. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Ryan Hayes felt hope. Humanity had proven that no matter how dark the skies may be, they would always rise again.